Following up on relationship building, this is such a big topic that we want to really spend a lot of time for you to understand it. And we cannot cover it in just the 2 episodes we've done. The first one was introduction, the second one were examples. This is one specific example you all need to know. To all you, my young people around the world who have heard about Nyaka from Korea to Singapore to Brazil to China, here, Hong Kong, here we are. Let me tell you how this relationship started. Once upon a time, I lived in California. In California, I met a man called Kevin Horamio. Kevin Horamio has been my friend before I even had my son, Nicholas Kaguri. That's more than 22 years of a relationship. Kevin and I were going to support and volunteer an organization for youth. In my passion has always been children and older people. His passion was youth also. We are going to CASA, Court Appointed Advocates in Woodland, California. Kevin gave me a ride. He had a truck. We had one car. I decided I would ride with Kevin. We got to know one another. On the drive to CASA, Kevin, I tell him, I'm building a school for orphans in Uganda. Kevin was a high school teacher at Woodland High School. He laughed so hard. I love you, Kevin, man. He laughed so hard and dug deep in his pocket and pulled out 36 cents, USA cents, coins, and put them in my lap on my hand and said, there you go, build a school. And I laughed and looked at it and said, Kevin, you just contributed bricks for the school. And he said, you are kidding me, right? You mean 36 cents can buy bricks? I said, sure. Thank you for your donation. Kevin and I became friends, continue to be friends. That's 36 cents. We saved it, we sent it, we built bricks. The first school we built had Kevin's 36 cents. But Kevin took it upon himself being a relationship builder, taught at Woodland High School, and then later moved to become an international teacher. He became an assistant principal at Korea International School, KIS. When he got Korea International School at KIS, he wrote to me 6 months into his job and said, Jackson, you need to come to Korea. I cannot convince the owners of this school or the principals to invite you. If you can find a ticket, come. Stay with me. I will introduce you to the PTA. I will introduce you to the children, and we will get something going, and they will read your book. I flew to Korea, ladies and gentlemen, stayed with Kevin Horamio, my brother, my friend, and spoke at Korea International School, elementary assembly, middle school assembly, and high school assembly. What happened on that trip triggered Korea International School to do a fundraiser for Nyaka every year for the next 10 years. I flew from Michigan to Korea. Kids at Korea International School raised money for their brothers and sisters in Uganda. We built a relationship that started in a truck driver sharing a ride to now a whole international school. If you want to get the context of Korea International School, the owner of Korea International School owns National Geographic Korea version. Now you see the wealth. I didn't know that. In the last episode, I told you, don't run after the money, run after the relationship. My relationship with the assistant principal, who later became a principal. And then Kevin decided he wanted to move from Korea International School, but the seeds were rooted, the trees had grown. I continued going even after he left. Some of you who don't know how international schools work, teachers are recruited and given a contract of 2 years, which means the teachers I was meeting there were teaching and leaving to other places. But the seeds we had planted, the producer, Matt Stab and I call it Nyakalizing. We had Nyakalized Korea International School 2 campuses. The teachers who were there would leave Korea International School and go to other schools around the world And guess what? Nyaka Gospel went with them into these new schools. All of a sudden, I'm invited to Singapore American School. Singapore American School, Lee Martin and her husband, Jason, and their two daughters, Willow and Ira, were there. They started the club, Friends of Nyaka, at Singapore American School. They went and told their grandmother in Iowa, who attended Nazarene Church, Deb Rhodes and your husband, the husband and the wife introduced Nyaka. They Nyakalized Iowa Nazarene Church. And guess what? As we speak right now in 2022, Nazarene Church has built 51 houses for grandmothers because Kevin started a relationship, Leah lynched on the relationship, her granddaughters took it to grandma, and 51 houses for grandmothers were built. One. Number two, Dave Lovrin and Teresa Lovrin, who were at David Lovrin was the replacement of Kevin Horamio at Korea International School. When Kevin left, they hired Dr. Lovrin from Oregon. Dr. Lovrin and his wife, who is a nurse, Teresa, went to Hong Kong International School, HKIS. Two daughters of theirs, the way they learned about Nyaka, Lucy and Ruby, were babysat by Sydney and Addison, who are the two sisters, daughters of Patrick and Danielle Rich. This young girl listened to me on one of the Korea International School dinners and told her parents, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. She would babysit Ruby and Lucy and take the money, put it in an envelope. Each time I came at Korea International School, I'd had a khaki envelope with money worth $300 to $400 and handed to me. They didn't only raise money, they influenced other young people to give. First, on Patrick and Danielle Rich, they taught, they continued. Danielle was the principal at Korea International School, elementary school. Many young people who are now in high school at Korea International School were taught. Some me when they were babies, they raised money, they sold their toys and gave money to Nyaka. Danielle and Rich are now in Abu Dhabi. I've been to Abu Dhabi in the Middle East raising money for Nyaka. They are still supporting Nyaka because the seed was planted at Korea International School. Ruby and Lucy, daughters of Teresa and David Lovrin, ended up at Hong Kong International School, where David became a principal and still is a principal today. And Hong Kong International School has supported Nyaka. High school students have gone to Uganda. Teresa has been to Nyaka as a result of that relationship. Amazing other couple, Sarah and Ryan Donson, who left Korea International School, went to Brazil. Their daughters, Liberty, their daughters, the twin girls, have gone from there to Brazil and took the message there. Kevin and his current wife went to Venezuela, continued Nyaka in Venezuela. Now they are in China. We even had a call next week on Sunday to continue China into Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, one relationship, Kevin and I, Korea International School, Singapore American School, Hong Kong International School, China, Venezuela, Brazil, several continents, and more of donations we still get. New Mexico, the church in New Mexico where Kevin, mom, and dad attended, supported Nyaka for 10 years straight on every Mother's Day. They raised a second offering. In a Catholic church, they do two offerings. One offering for the church, the second offering on every Mother's Day for 10 years, they supported Nyaka. Relationships. Kevin and I are still cool brothers. Him and his wife, now Diane, live in China. They've been to Nyaka. We brought so many people. Children's lives have been changed. Grandmothers' lives have been changed because of relationships. Don't you become lazy on watering and nurturing those relationships, not only because they give you money, but because they nourish your heart and they change lives of others. There you go. We will come up with more. We had to expound on these relationships and exhaustive. It is not exhaustive. Nyaka is 20 years later. Maybe if you want 120 hours of YouTube, we can do that. But for now, we are good. Go make those relationships work.